Bob encouraged me to maybe have the students take over the service and talk about Move rather than forcing a CIY Move video into the service. And everybody's like, I'd love to hear more about that. So we're going to do that. I'm very excited about that. Bob also encouraged me to maybe give you guys an overview of the student ministry. So I'm the student minister, Jake McFadden, and I'm actually going to interview one of our students. I'll call her up here in a second. But to just give you kind of a broad overview of why we do what we do. It's often talked about how there's a huge drop-off rate of students that get out of student ministry and go into college. They just go into the partying lifestyle and turn away from Jesus. It was actually Shane Wood, a conversation with Shane Wood way back when I was in Ozark Christian College. And he thinks the reason that happens is because we don't call students to a high enough calling. Like students want to get caught up in something greater than themselves. And Shane's opinion is that we're not calling students to a high enough calling. I wholeheartedly agree with him. So in our student ministry, rather than taking a shotgun approach of doing a whole bunch of totally crazy stuff, talking about Jesus every now and then shipping them off to college, we're very intentional about utilizing the main programming elements to move students closer to Jesus, as our mission statement would go, helping lead students to find and follow Jesus. This came out of, we looked at the student ministry programming, Justin Wood and I did, and at that point, the elders and everyone was really looking at emphasizing Jim Putman's Discipleship. So I'll go ahead and give him credit. It's a really great book. You should check it out. So we looked at the student ministry and where students are at developmentally and what stages they could possibly reach in the student ministry and geared the student ministry program to meet them where they're at, to take them to the next step in following Jesus. So ideally, a sixth grader who comes in who doesn't know Jesus leaves radically following Jesus Christ. But there's also a place for you if you come to Mid-Rivers Christian Church and you're a junior and you grew up in church. We've got a spot for you there too. So we've been very intentional on that. So Elise, if you want to come up, rather than me telling you what's going on in the student ministry, I thought I would let a graduating senior who's been there the entire time, she came in sixth grade, tell you about what's going on in the student ministry. So this is Elise Grog, who also went to CIY Move with us, and will tell you about that experience here later. So a first step in the student ministry, for somebody just kind of checking it out, we like to do connective events. And it's sort of a neutral environment where students can just check out the community of what's going on in the student ministry. How would you describe a connect event?
Yeah, so a connect event is just a fun time where sometimes we go bowling, ice skating, or we have a bonfire, just many different things. And it's a great way to invite your friends and just hang around fellow Christians.
Yeah. And so then a next stage, which this one's especially, but any of these stages, it's not like we're forcing students, you can only go to Sunday school if you're at this point. They all go together. So a student who doesn't know Jesus could totally start coming to Sunday school and run into Jesus Christ. But this one especially moves into the other stages more than any other, and that would be leader-student relationships. And so I see students 99.99% of the time deciding to make a decision to follow Jesus Christ because of the investment that another leader is making in their lives, and you see their authentic faith and following Jesus Christ. So do you have anything to say about leader-student relationships?
Yeah, so I have loved the leaders in the student ministry. They really help mentor us in our faith and grow us spiritually. So, for example, Reva, when she came in when I was a little sixth grader, she was just amazing. She loved on us, and it was great. And I was so moved by her that I wanted her to baptize me. And then also Tammy Waymeyer, she's been great in leading us through the student ministry. She was great as our middle school teacher and going on move trips with us. So leaders have an amazing impact on us.
Yeah, and if I could just say, I don't know if you know this, we are so blessed with the leaders that we have who are investing in our students' lives. Mid-Rivers Christian Church is totally lopsided in the maturity level and the investment that leaders have in our youth. Tammy Waymeyer and Adam Estes, who's going to come up here later and interview some of the students who are comfortable with sharing. Not all the students are going to come up. But Adam Estes and Tammy Waymeyer both have been involved in the student ministry for, I think, over 20 years, which is phenomenal. So clap about that. I honestly feel like at any point I could step aside and these leaders are capable and competent and they could run the student ministry by themselves. So we really have a powerhouse student ministry, and it's certainly because of the leaders, not because I'm so awesome. So thank you, leaders. So you fall in love with Jesus Christ through a relationship with a leader. A next step is to check out what does the relationship with Jesus Christ look like, right? And so we utilize Seek for that, thus its name, Seeking Jesus. So how would you describe the experience of Seek?
Yeah, so Seek is our Wednesday night gatherings, and it's just a great way to come together with middle schoolers and high schoolers, people your same age, and you're all there for the same reason. You're just like, okay, I feel like I should come here to learn about Jesus, but it's more than that. It's a great time for fellowship and eating some good food, and also we have worship with Grace and Robin. They do a great job at that. And then we have a little Bible study that Jake does. So it's a great way to learn more about Jesus.
Yeah, so you go to Seek and you get introduced to Jesus Christ and you're learning more about him, and then it's like, I want to really, really dig into this Jesus and how his power can fill my life and change my life. And so for the next step, we have Sunday school, which really for us is more like small groups. So how would you describe Sunday school?
Sunday school is a time, again, on Sundays to come and be with people your same age and gender. And it's a more comfortable space where you can share your personal stories, share what you're struggling with, and worship the Lord through more intimate Bible study. So it just allows you to open up a little bit more and share with people who are going through the same thing.
Yeah. So you fall in love with Jesus, you learn about him, and then the next step, of course, is so Jesus loves people, and you start developing that heart of love for others. And in the student ministry, our main emphasis is student leadership. There's other stuff that we get involved with, lots of other things, like we went to Love the Lou, we've been involved in food pantry and things like that, but the main emphasis is student leadership. So I think of like throwing a rope to those who are not as far along in maturity in Jesus and helping them come along to the next stage. So I would say, have reached that stage. How would you describe being a student leader?
Yeah, so Jake has really encouraged me to step out and love on others more. And I've always been an outgoing person, so it's easy for me to talk to people. And so my role in the student ministry is just to make people feel more comfortable and more welcome. So I'll just say like, hey, how are you? And just reaching out to those people who are new, it really makes them feel more loved and known, and it makes them feel welcome and more willing to come to youth group and connect events.
That's awesome. Well, that's a broad overview of the main programming elements and how we utilize those to bring people closer to Jesus. Elise, you did such a good job. I'm so proud of you. I wish you weren't graduating, but thank you so much.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Yes, that's correct. I did forget a question. Thank you for reminding me.
You're
See,
welcome.
A leader, right? She's telling me what's up. I love that. Thank you. I did. So back up and your experience with the student ministry, sixth grader, and now you're a graduating senior. How would you say the student ministry has impacted you?
Yeah, so when I came as a sixth grader, I was really dumb and sassy and ignorant and yeah, all of those things. And I feel like I've just really grown in maturity in my faith from the leaders, the Connect events, Seek, all of those things. And I can say confidently that I am a much better person. I mean, that sounds selfish saying that, but if you knew me in sixth grade, it was a little scary. So yeah, it has really helped me grow spiritually.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elise. And
You're
thank
welcome.
you for correcting me there.
You're welcome.
So now we are actually going to watch a video that Elise put together. It is a long video. It's 8 minutes long, unapologetically. It's a little long for a sermon video, but this isn't a sermon. And it's something that Elise put together of the things at CIY that really touched her. So I encourage you to kick back and just kind of think about your own story. Like, where do you need to trust in God more, perhaps? Because after that, Adam Estes is going to come up and interview the students and talk about how did the story of Elijah impact you at Move. So think about that. Think about that. I'm going to tell you a couple things that's going to go on in the video, just so you can watch for them. It is at Ozark Christian College, so that's the campus that we're at. You'll see a girl get up on stage in front of everybody that looks a lot like Elise Grog. It is Elise Grog. So CIY highlighted her as a kingdom worker because she's going to go into nursing, and she wants to use that nursing degree to go into short-term missions work, among other things in the mission field. So they highlighted her in that. You'll see her getting up. Also, there's this massive waterfall. Well, it is massive. It is the biggest waterfall in the state of Missouri that happens to be in Joplin. So we went and checked that out. Also, we went to this place, and you'll see some like weird artwork going on. That's actually the Joplin Memorial that they put up for where the tornado ripped through Joplin. So a really powerful time for the students to just kind of reflect. And then you'll see the song will shift. And then you'll see my little boy, Caleb. And actually, I'm going up to introduce one of my very best friends, Caleb, to Caleb. Caleb inspired me to name my son Caleb after the biblical figure, Caleb. So there's that. And then he did a house show for us, which was super cool. And then we go to Rappa House, and you'll see me like trying to shove this little elephant on one of the other students. Well, Rapha House is near and dear to my heart because my little brother serves in Cambodia with his whole family and 4 kids to try to help rescue girls out of human trafficking, but also to keep them out of it in the first place. And so that little elephant was made by one of those little girls, and it's one of the ways in which Rapha House trains these girls and gives them skills so that they don't necessarily have to get money in other ways. So that's Rapha House. And then at the very end, definitely the most important part of the whole video, so don't miss it, there's like a railroad sign and 3 students standing by that railroad sign. And what that is that was CIY's creative moment for students who wanted to shift tracks in their lives. Like my life was going this way, and I am deciding to shift tracks and go this way. And we had 3 students that came forward to do that. Sam Mathis, Grace, and Ted, all 3 decided to make that decision. So whenever you see them up there, remember that. So yeah, we're going to play the video, check it out, and just relax. Yeah.
Just like I see my Father do. I know this ground is not our home. It's only meant for passing through. We were meant me down. He's breaking all my chains. Your love casts out all fear. Your love casts out all fear. Bursting with goodness, longing for joy. When I'm overcome, I'm calling out for more. Don't try to hold me down. He's breaking all my chains. Don't try to hold me down. He's breaking all my chains. Your love casts out all fear. Your love casts out all fear. Don't try to hold me down. He's breaking all my chains. Don't try to hold me down. He's breaking all my chains. Your love casts out all fear. Your love casts out all fear. Love casts out all fear. Your love casts out all fear.
All right. Well, I get the privilege today of coming up here and doing what I love most about student ministry and just talking to some of our students. It's a little different because we have microphones, and normally I don't let Sam have a microphone, but that's okay. So students, if you would come on up. While they're doing that, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the theme of Move. CIY puts together these great themes that involve a lot of different elements, and one in particular, well, the theme this year was Elijah. And we looked at the life of Elijah, and a lot of things stood out to us. What you're going to notice when we start talking is most of what stood out to our students from the story of Elijah involves fire, so do with that what you will. But there were parts before that the first couple days that kind of lead up to that. And one of the things Jake mentioned, and you'll hear again from a couple of students, there was a line on one of the first nights that Elijah did some pretty great things and had a lot of great faith. And the reason he had that faith was that he knew God's history, and he knew God had done these things before and that God would do it again, which is why we asked the band to play Do It Again. But that allowed him to pray some pretty big prayers and change the question that he was going to ask. But I'm going to let them tell you about that. So up first, we have Samantha. So, Samantha, hi. Yeah, I didn't have to tell you not to make that face this time. I'm proud of you. What part of Elijah's story stood out to you the most?
Okay, so the part of Elijah's story that stood out to me the most was the part where he was on this mountain with about 800 other prophets, and they were all saying, hey, this is the real God, don't follow your God, this is wrong, and then Elijah's like, no. that's not right. And so they all start praying because they're like, we can prove to you that our God's real. And so they all start praying, and Elijah asks God for, like, basically he asks him to start this altar, a fire. And all the other prophets did the same thing, and Elijah's was the only one that worked. And all the prophets were in awe, and they were just amazed that how their God didn't come through for them, but Elijah's God did. And so that kind of just stood out to me because they also talked about how he prayed. He didn't pray like hoping he would do this, hoping it would come true. He prayed believing that this would happen, and believing that he knew that God was going to come through for him and provide, because trusting in him is what our goal is. It's what we need to do to pursue him, and it's not our story. It's not our story through him, it's his story through us. And so it just really stood out to me on how to trust him and to start praying to him.
All right, so how is Samantha after move different from Samantha before move?
So before move, I didn't pray a lot, and I thought I had a really strong connection with God, but I didn't really. I went to church, and that's about it. I would talk to God a few times a month. It wasn't anything too big. But after move, I feel like I've had a stronger connection with him. I don't know how to explain it. I just feel happier because during move, I felt a connection with him like I had never had before. And I feel like I'm just with him and seeing the small things in life and how they're not just luck, but it's like what God's providing for me.
All right, thank you. It's okay, clap.
Good job.
Elise,
Hello.
hello. What was your favorite part of Elijah's story?
Yeah, so my favorite part was kind of like Sam's, what she just said with the altar and God providing the miracle for Elijah. So when the fire came down from the heavens, that really stood out to me because it made me realize, like, if God performed that miracle for Elijah, he can do the same thing in our lives. It may not be fire coming down from the heavens, because we'll probably not see that while we're driving down the road, but it can be just simple things that we take for granted that could be the miracles. And also, like, I know going from high school to college, there's a lot of just uncertainty of what lies ahead for me. So even though I don't know what's on the other side, like, I can trust in Jesus. And yeah, even though I don't know what lies ahead in my future, I can trust God's history and what he's done.
So how does this move compare with previous moves, and how are you different and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So going into this move, I was basically just normal myself. And then as I was going through the week, I realized, like, okay, I'm not feeling like how I've usually felt during move in previous years. Like, usually when you go to move, you get a Jesus high, and then when you come back, you're like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And I didn't really feel that this time. So I was getting mad at myself because I didn't know what was going on. But then, like, Jake and Adam, they helped me explain that, like, this is a time that you go through in your life. Like, you can go through this sort of darkness and uncertainty, and it's okay. And what I was reminded of is, like, let God work through this time in my life. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm just going to trust God to lead me wherever he wants me to go.
All right, thanks, Elise.
You're welcome.
All right, Paige, what stood out to you the most about Elijah's story?
What stood out to me the most is just a number of different parts where just Elijah, after he had called down fire, or, he had asked God to bring down this fire, afterwards, how he was afraid for his life from Jezebel and about how he ran away. And just also about how, he was going through the desert and, he was like, I'm going to die, and he was just asking God, like, I just want to die. And just about how God wouldn't let him since, his story wasn't done there. and just how God provided for him as he was in the wilderness. And then about how he gets to the cave and about how God tells him to go out, but just how he stays there. And then after God, he's, causing earthquakes and, lightning's going on and all this, after all that, and just how God showed his power. And, he was there in a whisper, how Elijah only went to the mouth of the cave, and how we're, we all want to do it kind of our way, but that's not how it works. Our way's broken, and about how we need to fully trust in God and that he's got this, and that, it's his story, or he'll work through us, but just giving that up to God.
All right, and how is Paige different now than before move?
Just saying that it's going to be okay, with just I'm going into my senior year, worrying about college and then jobs and money, and just knowing that God's got this, and that this world won't last, and just knowing that he's there.
And you talked about having to trust God and that God takes care of people. And most of you probably, well, I don't know, many of you probably don't know, but Paige in less than 2 weeks will be going on a mission trip. So tell us about that.
Yes, so I'm going with CIY Engage to Poland. And I just kind of went out there and I said, okay, I'm going to put an application in. I probably won't get accepted. I got accepted. And then I was like, okay, I probably won't get the funding. And then I have gotten the funding, so now I'm going, and I'm really excited to learn, and, just knowing that, God made this happen.
That's going to be really awesome for you. All right, thanks, Paige. And Sam, don't smile like that. I'm scared now.
Excited.
What stood out to you the most about Elijah's story?
What stood out to me the most about Elijah's story was kind of what Paige touched on. So at Move, whenever they were talking about the story where Elijah ran away, he ran into a cave, they painted a picture that was like, what is your cave? And they had like a whole bunch of different things that like your loneliness. And the cave was representing was like the sin and our darkness and where we find comfort in the evils of this world. And I really didn't feel like I connected with any of those. I felt like I connected with several of them. I felt like I had a whole cave system and at that point in my life. And but God called Elijah out of the cave. But first he sent fire, earthquake, windstorm. But God wasn't in any of those. It was a gentle whisper, and that hit me because at Move, that was where God was able to whisper to me. Because a lot of times God comes in the still and the gentle, and a lot of times we don't take the time in our lives to allow that whisper to happen, to be in the still, in the quiet, and allow God to call us out of our cave. For me, I was just called out of my cave because I really hadn't been walking in the light and what God had wanted me to do at that point in life. And for Elijah, however, he was complaining to God that he was not the right guy for the job, that he was not. He had been zealous for God, but he wasn't anything. He was just like his ancestors. He was not any better. And one thing that they said that night, whenever they were talking about this, stood out to all of us, I feel, and that was we're called to obey God, but God is the one who is in charge of results. We're not called to do that, and I think as a lot of young adults, at least, and I think about anybody, we focus on the results, and that's really not our job. It's just to obey God. So for me, the whisper really was able to come through Move. And then the second part that stood out to me was after he was called out, he was called to anoint 2 kings and his successor, Elisha. Elisha was pretty well-off guy. He had a plow and oxen and everything. And Elijah came down and asked him, "Do you like to be my successor?" And Elisha was like, "Yeah. I'm all in." And he showed this by burning his plow and burning all of his oxen and feeding his village because he was completely all in. A lot of times Jake has called this the flag in the sand moment. And for me in my life, Move was able to provide that, where I was just like, well, this is where I'm going to choose to follow God, and I'm not turning back, where it doesn't even make sense to turn back anymore because I'm all in for God, you know? Yep.
Some of that was new. That's why I was scared. But Sam, you mentioned that you heard God whispering and that you were supposed to kind of switch tracks, basically. So what does Sam after Move look like compared to Sam before Move?
For me, it's just really using the struggles that I have gone through for him. Just hanging out with the wrong people, I'm able to share God through myself to them. Also, just focusing less about what I want and what I want out of the world, and really what God can do through me and what I can do for others, really. Because I've always been a really outgoing person, but I've always used that for my own self-interest instead of to help others.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We do have one more student who wanted to share, Grace Moore, but she's not able to be here today, so we have a video of what she would like to tell you from Move.
Grace, what's up? So you're not able to be here with us on Sunday, so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to give your story about CIY, because I know it impacted you a lot. What particular passage was it, or what's the story in that passage that impacted you?
So once Elijah came out of his cave and he came back to the Lord, he found Elisha and he called him to follow him. And Elijah was willing to give up everything and even burn all of his plow to follow Elijah. And I found that really inspiring, because it was he was all in. That showed that he was all in. So he tried to do whatever he could to show Elijah that he wanted to follow him, and even by burning everything and leaving everything for Elijah.
That's awesome. So how has that impacted you?
So it kind of showed me that in order to be all in, you have to figure out what is holding you back from pursuing him. And personally, I've realized my story is not doesn't really matter. It's mainly his story.
Yeah.
And how he it doesn't matter what I want, it's what he wants for me, and what he knows what I need, but I don't know what I need because I don't know what he has in store for me.
Right.
So I know that my story doesn't matter, and it's mainly just his and what his plans are for me.
That's awesome. So how does that feel for you now? How do you feel different? So before you felt one way, now how do you feel considering that?
So before I was really confused. I just had doubts, and I was I don't really know. I was I don't really know if I want to pursue. I don't really know this or that. And then after Move, I realized that he really showed me that I will never forsake you. Even Jesus had those times where he was why are you forsaking me? And I just been going through those times and just a dry patch, and now I've realized that in order to pursue him, I just have to be all in and give up my story for his story and what he has in plan for me.
Totally. That is amazing. Yeah. And we can all learn a lot from that. So thanks for sharing with us.
Yep.
All right, Grace. I am so proud of them, aren't you? So I can speak for the other leaders, and I know you guys in the congregation as well who know the students. It's just been amazing watching God take you and move you to the next level and the next level and the next level. And I know I say this, but you don't realize how awesome you are, and how much God can use you in his kingdom, and how I can just see the Holy Spirit moving and working in you. So I would love for you guys to bring other people that are outside of our community inside of our community. I think that anybody at your schools would love to be a part of the way that we love one another and love Jesus. But if that doesn't happen, until you go to college, Elise, then not that you haven't invited people, but I would gladly see that happen when you go to college. So again, we're just so proud of you. So thank you for what you did today. Another round of applause. So for me, where I was touched at Move, because I always, right, Adam, you always get hit at Move too. Yeah, it's not just the students. But for me, it was in Elijah's story, kind of like Paige had mentioned, whenever Elijah just did this epic, magnificent, maybe one of the biggest moments ever, maybe up there with like Noah in magnificence, but like calls out all these prophets of Baal and has this showdown and just trusts that God's going to come through, and God does. And it's just like, like Superman. And then right after that, one person, Jezebel, I mean, a significant person, but one person says, I'm going to kill you. And he gets scared and he runs away. I'm just like, what's up with that? And he runs, it says he leaves his servant and runs a day's journey into the wilderness and lays down under a bush and prays for God to take his life. And realizing that in that moment for Elijah, God was still there and he came through and he provided for his needs. And I think for myself, knowing that no matter what I go through, no matter what low I hit, God will always be there for me and provide for me and come through. God loves to come through. It's what he does. We can look back at his history. So as you guys are sitting there, I encourage the students. Paul said to Timothy, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for believers. And so you've got something to say to us. And we're listening. So if there's any of you here today that maybe you're like, I thought I had to be up here in order for God to like me, but I didn't know I could be here and God would still love me and still be there for me. So if you're there, if you're in that dark spot, I would like to offer up the students. If you would like to come forward or go back, there'll be other leaders around, and just bring that into the light. Like, come out of your cave and bring that into God's light, and just this be the beginning of you trusting in God's history and knowing that he will come through. I would like to invite you to do that. Or if you're that person who are like, whoa, these kids love Jesus like crazy, and I don't know him that way, we would love to introduce you to a relationship with Jesus Christ as well. As the band plays, if you guys would like to come talk to us students or any of the other leaders around this room, please do that. Thank you.